Hello there. It is Wednesday, the 13th day of May 2020. And here in Central California, it's an overcast kind of cool day. Not a happy day to be outside. And when this occurs in California, of all places, I get kind of restless. And so I have put a link to Patrick 7784, is a truck driver who drives around Europe. And when I feel particularly stuck in the house, I ride with Patrick around Europe. And what I notice about Europe is that the freeways look the same, and the truck stops look the same, and the signals are the same, and the towns are the same, and the intervening land is the same. But I can actually feel the motion and movement of the truck when he slows down, changes gears, or come to a stop. I can feel it. And so that relieves the sense of being stuck. And we are, depending on whether we're in a blue state or red state, pretty stuck at the moment. We're stuck because the manufactured virus, manufactured at Fort Detrick, Maryland, and then it went to Canada, and then it went to Wuhan, China, and so on, successfully freaked out the health industry and got government to shut everything down. And so right now, 30 to 40 million Americans are out of work, not able to make a living. And so the government is having to print money so that the people who are out of work can survive in this now centrally planned economy, socialist economy, producing money that has no value to buy stuff that are necessities. It's a grand game that they're inflicting upon us because none of us signed up for this. None of us did. Now, I am considered as one of the vulnerable populations, but I lucked out. I live alone and nobody's bothering me. And when I take a walk, I don't run into people. So I'm really alone right now, except for my friends, my friends here at Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn and Twitter. And so I do my thing. But I think about the 30 to 40 million people who are all of a sudden unemployed, whereas just a few months ago, we were a booming economy, and the health profession and big farmer, all these political yahoos have brought our entire nation to a halt, and other nations as well. And I have to think that there's a cosmic purpose for everything coming to a screeching halt. There has to be a cosmic purpose for this. And one thing it's forcing me to do is think about, well, what are our options now? Do we just sit here and wait for rescue? Is that what we're here for? To wait for the four horsemen on the apocalypse to show up and to be rescued from certain annihilation in a revelation of world war or worldwide plague? What are we doing here? And I think that's a good question to ask. What can we do? All right, well, one of the things we can do is study up and view a lot of things that we haven't been bothering with because we've been having too much fun watching our favorite TV shows and watching our favorite movies and playing our favorite video games. I think most of our country has come to the quick, all of a sudden realization that we got to get real. We got to get real now. There's no messing around anymore. And a lot of very essential services and businesses are shut down. Trucking is shut down. Transportation, buses are shut down. And churches are shut down. And churches are allowing themselves to be shut down. I'm amazed at that. I'm amazed. Because churches provide the fundamental community that enables people to help each other. You shut down the church, and the elderly shut-ins have no help. And oh, now nursing homes can't have any visitors. Can you imagine that? People in the hospital can't have any visitors. And all the people wearing masks are freaking out everybody else, because that must mean that this virus is much more dangerous than all the other viruses that have been inflicted upon us since 1983, when Dr. Fauci began engineering the HIV virus and the H1N1 and the SARS, and they've engineered these viruses. When is somebody going to bring that practice to a halt? Why create diseases? Isn't that some kind of world-class human rights violation? Duh. All right. And so, all right, we now have time to think some of these things through. We have time to think through the fact that the Democratic Party is jumping through hoops to change the electoral system so that illegals and unregistered voters can cast votes by mail, and it won't be caught. There's now something called vote harvesting, in addition to the voting machine hacking and the district gerrymandering and the vote count being tossed in the dumpster in the back. We have time now to think about what is happening to rig our voting system so that we don't get an honest election. We have time to think about what is really essential. We're not going to the theater, we're not going out to restaurants, we're not taking day trips here and there to tourist places. So what are we doing with our time? Well, hopefully we are now homeschooling our children and learning what their textbooks are teaching them in the communist core curriculum. All right, the communist core curriculum teaches insubordination and cynicism and nihilism. And hopefully parents are all of a sudden becoming aware that their children are being taught to be sassy and disrespectful and lower their eyes when you pass them on the street. They don't look up. They don't say hello. Hello, how are you? Go to hell. Nothing. Kids are addicted to their cell phones. And something has to happen about that. All right, this is a good time to think about what we can dispose of in order to raise cash when the cash runs out. This is a good time to stage. Wow, you can't have a garage sale. You can't have a flea market. You can in the red states. But have you heard what Gavin Newsom has cut out for California? That California will be shut down until August. And that, of course, will halt the agriculture community from growing the crops that feed the world. That's Gavin Newsom's idea of helping. He's the nephew of Pelosi, okay? And the Browns and the Pelosi's and the Feinsteins have been in power since the 1950s when Pat Brown was governor. Yeah, before Jerry Brown took over. Okay, California has been a socialist state for a long time. And so the outcome in California and Oregon and Washington is very, very uncertain and rather scary, to be perfectly honest with you. We still have some food at the store, but it looks as if the plan is that the stores will be empty by this fall. That's what it looks like from here. And what we have is a staged Bolshevik revolution to destroy the civil architecture and civil process in the country so that revolution and every man's hand against his neighbor will require the Bolsheviks to inflict upon us their one world, one government solution. And that's what they did in Russia. That's what they did in China. That's what has happened in Venezuela. And that's the plan here, that the globalists have a method, an almost ironclad, Loctite method of bringing down a civil governance in order to inflict their just us upon everyone. And I think that people are waking up. People are waking up. Now, on Twitter, I have a dubious distinction of being somewhat of a snake in the grass. You know, I make Ann Coulter look like a very nice lady, okay? Because I make comments that are not nice. I make comments that are blunt. Okay, I'm blunt. And that's how it goes, because what I'm seeing is bluntly stated a diktat, an agenda to take down this country. Now, I'm not going to be the one to say this country is the greatest thing since sliced bread, because you and I know since World War II, Operation Paperclip, German Nazis were seeded into NASA and into medicine and big pharma and into academics and think tanks, so that what we have now is a form of fascism that's in alignment with its methods with Nazi Germany's Third Reich. That's what we've got, right? And that's not a complimentary thing to say about our country, where I was born and grew up. And I'm very ashamed what this nation has done in its belief that policing other nations was its mandate and charge. And so, what goes around comes around, and we have to reap what we sow. And like Russia, we are either going to confront the revolutionaries and just quietly take them out of power, or we're going to have a revolution, or we're going to have a war, or both. And so the smug satiety that has been our lot since the 1950s no longer exists. There is no more smug satiety. And the technocracy is entirely aligned with the Chinese communist system of top-down surveillance and top-down control. And so Silicon Valley appears to have become an enemy of the people and the original governance of the United States. The technocracy wants to bring an end to the original Constitution and substitute the organic Constitution of 1871, in which citizens who aren't privy to the special privileges of the elites and the 1% are considered nothing but chattel, cattle, and consumable products. And this is one reason why, for so long, human trafficking has gotten away with slavery and bribery and, the three crimes of imperialism: treachery, saying you're going to do one thing in a public office and doing something entirely different. I call it double dealing. Okay. Protection, tax, racketeering, bribery, pay to play, offshore bank accounts so you launder money coming in from drug running and gun running. Okay. And slavery caused when a corporation can simply unilaterally move wherever they want, so they always have the cheapest labor and they keep their price low, so the only people who make out are the CEOs and the officers and the board of directors of the corporation. The 1% are the only ones who make out in the situation where protection rackets and monopolies and trusts are permitted by law, and maritime admiralty law has no defense for the people against these protection rackets. So we're going to have a law renaissance and get the connection between personal common laws against harm and aligned with impersonal corporate statute rules. It's all about rule baiting. And rule baiting is why corporate properties run on very, what we call in California, chicken shit rule baiting. They're very rude. There is no cooperation among the tenants, and there's no cooperation anywhere. Everything is just rule baiting. And the third crime that we have to confront and deal with openly is divide and conquer. And who's into divide and conquer? Our churches are organized and established around, we're righter than you, and we're going to tell you what's the real truth here. All right. Churches have, particularly the Protestant wing of the Christian church, has centered around preferences with respect to doctrine and dogma. And as far as I understand from scripture, when Jesus talked about the church, he talked about my church. And the church had not only a set of opinions about what was right and what was wrong, but they took care. They were a church of one purse, a community of one purse. There were lots of communities of one purse until King Henry VIII disbanded 800 communities of one purse in Britain alone. And so the church has pretty much abandoned the practices of Jesus Christ. At least the Protestant wing has. The Catholic wing is still struggling with the practices of its priests and bishops and cardinals and stuff. And the Orthodox Church is still struggling with its relationship to the past. What makes me feel better about some of the Christian groups, let me call them groups or communities, is that they have found that patriarchy, the rule by men who are left brain dominant and who are goal oriented, and they are objective oriented, and they don't really pay much attention to what's going on around them. The churches have been left brain dominant for 500 years. And a few of the churches are re-embracing matriarchy. And they're doing that in the practice of observing and telling the stories of the saints, particularly the women saints, and showing the women and girls in their churches how to model the behavior of the feminine gender according to a model of family and bloodline in which a holy matrimony bonds a man and a woman, and they create a bloodline that is intended to go into the future 7 generations or so, which is not the objective or the preferences of the LGBT movement. And so what I see is there is a natural division between dynasty marriage and handfasting. And I think that natural division needs to be respected so that the people who engage in either choice have a sense of certainty and peace about their choice rather than all the fighting that's going on. Basically, I'm pretty sick of the fighting. I bet you are too. So there are a lot of conflicts and disputes and issues right now to be looked at and thought about. And most of us have access to the internet so that we can jump in and get involved and learn some new things. And learning new things is what life is about. So let's be about it. Let's move on. And hey, I've been looking at some videos that are recipes I've never seen before. And I've been seeing horse training, and, you know, there's a lot to see, even if you're stuck at home. And once you can get out of being stuck at home, hey, I hope to God that you find a new way to adapt in community and in trust to earning a living, because that's how we're going to have to do it. See you guys Friday. Bye-bye.